Investing in legendary commanders in Rise of Kingdoms is one of the most important decisions that you make for the progression of your account, and one of the things that I never hear from any Rise of Kingdoms player is, Omniarch, I have so many sculptures, I have no idea where to invest them. No, oftentimes it's the complete opposite. I have people saying, Omniarch, do I invest in this or do I invest in that, or should I wait because I only have 500 sculptures, I only have 300 sculptures, I don't know what to invest in to get the most value out of those sculptures. So historically, one of the strategies that players will often take is to make a partial investment in a legendary commander, because as you guys know, the more skills that you upgrade for a given commander, the more expensive the next skill is going to cost. So for example, the first ever skill upgrade costs 10 sculptures, but now if I want to do my next skill up for Saladin, it's going to cost me 75, and ain't no way your boy's doing that. Okay, so today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the top 8 best commanders that you can use with only 380 legendary commander sculptures. Now this might come in the form of what is known as 5551, which if you're a new player just means 5551 in the skill investment, or there may be some alternatives to that which are a little bit harder to get, but I'll share with you guys how to get them later in the video, so stay tuned. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Before we jump in, 2 really quick things I want to mention here. First of all, in the last month, my second channel has grown twice as fast as this channel that you're watching right now, which means, well, if you've supported that channel, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I've been putting a lot of work into this channel, but also if you're not over there and you're not subscribed, then that means you're officially late to the party. You're late, and I'm giving you a chance now. The link's going to be in the description. Check out the second channel. As you can see, we've been covering a lot of Nintendo news lately over there, but we've also talked about Blizzard, Ubisoft, Grand Theft Auto 6. So gaming news is what we're covering over there. Check it out, link down below. And the second thing I want to touch on is that, as you guys know, I am a partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms, which means they support a few videos on the channel every single month, just like this one. But the most important support comes from you guys dropping a thumbs up down below, subscribing if you're new here, because we're so close to 90,000 subscribers, guys. With that being said, let's jump right in here, and I want to start with an honorable mention. Okay, this one is not part of the top 8, but it is an honorable mention, and that is Emperor Qin. And why does he not land on the list? And the answer is because he is so gosh darn powerful. Like, what are you doing? If you're not going to expertise him, what do you do? This is the single best commander in Rise of Kingdoms. There's hardly anywhere that you should take points away to still get as much value as possible, right? If we go through the first 4 skills, if we were to force ourselves to say, okay, which of these 4 skills is providing the least amount of value that you could get rid of it and you'd be happy with it at 1, the answer is probably the active skill, which is kind of insane because that is literally never the case for any commander in the game almost. But like, realistically, this skill at 1 still does everything exactly the same. It just cuts the damage in half, right? Which is horrible, right? That sounds bad, but you look at the other skills, like Emperor Qin's rage cycle is based on how fast he's consuming rage. And so if the second skill is anything less than at 5, he's consuming rage slower, which means his skill cycle is slower. On top of that, this is where all of his stats and march speed are, so you need the skill at 5. The third skill, when it's not expertise, is also a big contributor to your rage consumption and the damage that you're dealing to nearby targets. And then the fourth skill, this is what gives you that initial large rage pool that you can start pulling from and consuming to speed up your rage cycle. If this isn't at 5, I mean, leaving this at 1 is 250. Like, you're not going to have a lot of rage to start the battle with here. So like, a lot of his kit, a lot of the synergy is actually putting on the Eternal Emperor buff, which you can do with this skill at 1. The other 3 skills kind of feed off of one another to pop that active skill over and over and over again. So it's like, the truth is, like, if you did like a 1-5-5-5, maybe you could get away with that, but like, what are we talking about? Just expertise Emperor Qin. Okay, like, don't even try to get a value build out of him. Just, you know what you need to do, get him expertise. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. So I needed to just get this out of the way. Maybe there are people making good use out of him at a budget build, but the truth is, he's just so dang good at expertise that it's not even really worth thinking about anything else. All right, with that out of the way, let's start with some commander investments that are 380 legendary commander sculpture investments, but they are not 5551. And the reason that we're starting here is because these commanders, with them not being 5551, it's not something you can guaranteed get, which makes them a little bit less valuable on this list of top 8, right? If you can't guaranteed get the skill configuration outcome that you want, then the value of that commander goes down a little bit, because if you don't have any skill resets, then you're screwed. You might have a really bad build. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about here is actually a commander whose relic was just upgraded, and that is none other than Mehmed. Mehmed, I know I'm saying that with my throat feels weird when I say Mehmed. Mehmed is definitely one of those commanders that is a fan favorite. People love him because he is a gold key commander. He comes around for free at the beginning of the game. He has a 5 target AoE. It is skill damage. Yes, it's a little bit lower, but the rest of his kit is all universal stats because he's a leadership commander. He gives you 20% attack, 20% skill damage. So there we go. The first two skills are 5 target AoE, generic stats for all troop types. The third skill is the one that we want to skip though, because this is when you're hitting a city. You're dealing additional damage to the garrison. You're really not going to be rallying cities with Mehmed. I mean, do I even need to say that in 2025? Like, the only time you're going to be city rallying with Mehmed is like maybe in kvk1. All right, even then, probably not going to happen. Okay, so the third skill is pretty much useless. In fact, in the open field, it is quite literally useless. The fourth skill, however, gives you 10% troop capacity in the open field, which is quite good, right? This is actually really nice because the more units that you have, the more damage that you deal. So if you can get your Mehmed to 5515, that is 380 legendary commander sculptures. And if he gets that configuration, or I should say despite whatever configuration that you have, getting his relic upgraded to tier 3 in the museum is going to give you 40% health and 10% more skill damage. That is insane. So his total kit is 20% attack, 40% health, 30% skill damage, 10% troop capacity, and a 5 target skill damage AoE. I mean, that's almost everything that you could want. The only downside is no march speed, and the damage factor is a bit low on the active skill. If he's not expertise, it's 1150. That's kind of low. I mean, it's actually very low, to be honest with you guys, but the rest of his kit is just so universally and generically good that he must make this list. Of course he's going to make this list. Now, just because he's on this list does not mean you should be dumping universal sculptures into him. Okay, do not do that. Just get his sculptures exclusively from the gold keys, and eventually you will get him at 5515 or 55 something 5. I mean, that's the way to do it. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you're trying to build a commander that has a configuration that is not 5551, then you might have a hard time doing that because of RNG, but there is a solution. Okay, let's go ahead and take a commander like Pyrrhus, for example. All right, this is a great example. My Pyrrhus is 5511. So if I add another skill to his kit right now, then it can go in one of two places. It can either upgrade the third skill or it can upgrade the fourth skill, which means if I wanted a 5515, then I have a 50% chance for each skill upgrade that the point is going to go into the skill that I wanted, right? It's either going to go here or here. I want it here, which means there is a 1 in 2 chance or a 50% chance. Okay, and you're gonna have to do that 4 times, right? Because you have to take it from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. All right, so 4, you have to win the 50-50 4 times in a row, which is like, feels bad, man. I know, which is why getting the 5551 is so much better, because you might be saying, okay, well, why is that better? It's still a 50-50. It's actually not, because they have implemented what's called the skill lock feature. You'll see right here there's a gear with a lock on it, and when you click on that, you can actually pull the slider down and that will lock the fourth skill, right? And so I confirm that, and boom, now if I add a skill point to my Pyrrhus, it is guaranteed to go into this third skill because this one is locked. Okay, now the catch here is that you can't lock any of the skills. It's a sliding scale, right? So there's no way to guaranteed lock everything except for the fourth skill, which is why getting the 5515 is harder than the 5551. Okay, the other thing you could do is simply not unlock the fourth skill while you're starring them up, right? Just don't even unlock this, don't even bring him to 4 stars, just leave him at 3 stars, get his first 3 skills to 5, then you could proceed from there. Either way you do it, it doesn't really matter, but that is exactly why a 5515 is hard to achieve, and so that's definitely a point against Mehmed. Now, if you are upgrading a commander and they do not get the configuration that you want, there is a really cool item called the skill reset, and what this does is it effectively resets the progress of your commander's skills, and you will get to essentially re-roll those skill points once again. And so this is the item that you're going to use if you want to try to get the 5515 configuration. Let's say you get unlucky and you get a 5542 configuration. Well, that again, that third skill is useless. You use the skill reset and then you get to try again, and hopefully you get more lucky that time. So the more skill resets that you have, the higher the probability that you're going to be able to get what you want, because you'll have more chances at it, right? I made a video in the past, I think it's over a year ago at this point, but when I tried to upgrade my Gorgo, I was losing my mind because I was trying to get her at 5515 and I had a complete rage meltdown. So if you guys missed that video, check it out. But a lot of people thought it was really funny. But anyway, that's how you get the 5515 configuration. If you don't have any skill reset items, they typically come around in things like the recharge rewards, or usually you get them from a 5 or 7 day login event. I think the anniversary event usually gives us one for free. So there's a couple of ways that you get it for free throughout the year, but they are extremely rare. So I would save them for commanders that really get a lot of value at 5515. Okay, with all that being said, let's move on with the list because we have strayed quite far from the list. And another 5515 commander that you can consider here is actually Bai Qi. Now, Bai Qi barely made this list because honestly, I do think he's great at expertise, but realistically speaking, if you look at what makes him so valuable in the open field, it's first of all, his 5 target AoE is absolutely busted, right? Second skill gives you really good attack, health, and march speed stats here for infantry. So, okay, you really need those two, but then between the last two skills, which one's more valuable? Well, if we take a look here, the third skill, no matter what level the skill is at, whether it's at 1 or 5, you're still going to gain 10 stacks of malice whenever you use an active skill, right? It doesn't really matter. You're always going to get 10 stacks of malice here. So, okay, the value of this skill is getting you the stacks, and no matter what, you're getting the maximum number of stacks. So, okay, that's pretty cool. Then it says if your malice stacks are higher than the percentage of the target's units remaining, you spend 10 stacks to deal some amount of damage, and you gain a bonus to sev wounds and rage speed for 1 second. Okay, now if this skill's at 1, the damage factor drops from 300 to 100, which realistically it cuts it to a third, which is pretty bad, but 300 is not that much anyway. And really the sev wounds inflicted and rage gain speed, this is only for 1 second. It's only for 1 second. So this small little buff here, no matter what, whether it's at 2 or 10 or 10 or 20, like it's only a 1 second thing. So is it useless? No, it's not useless at all. But if we're going to sacrifice one skill on Bai Qi, it might as well be the one that you still get the best part of the skill no matter what, and the rest of it is already not that great to begin with. Whereas the fourth skill straight up gives you 10% more normal damage, which is your white numbers and your smite damage, right? That bumps it up from 5 to 10, and your stacking smite damage bonus goes from 1 to 5. So that's a 5x improvement over a 1 skill point to 5 skill point. So to me, just the fact that you get that 5% normal damage bonus, that's probably the way to go here. Because one of the things that people like a lot about Bai Qi is that as you're losing units, he still packs quite a punch because of this fourth skill. And so if you sacrifice this for this, I mean, you might be able to make the argument there, but I personally think the fourth skill is the better skill. Now, that being said, you can't guaranteed get the fourth skill to 5 anyway. So if you wanted to, you could do like a 5-5-3-3 or something like that and just take the best of both worlds, right? And then you get, you know, 7% normal damage, 3% smite bonus stacks, goes up to 18%, and you get a 200 damage factor smite. You know, that's one way to do it. You just let the skills land how they will, and you get the best of both worlds, really, or a sort of a compromise in the middle. Moving on, let's talk about another infantry commander, and that is Ragnar Prime. Now, just like Bai Qi, I would recommend that you try to get your hands on a 5-5-1-5 if you're not going to expertise him. And this goes without saying, right? But this applies to all commanders in this video. Commanders are better at expertise, right? I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but a lot of times I always get people commenting saying, you really should expertise that commander, they're so much better. It's like, duh, right? Like expertise commanders are better. Obviously the point of the video is bang for your buck. The point of the video is value, right? And I think you can get a pretty good value out of a 5-5-1-5 Ragnar, because the active skill without the expertise still really powerful. You obviously lose the additional damage to each target. Instead, it's only the current target, which is definitely unfortunate, which is really why I like the expertise here, but it's still a strong active skill regardless. Second skill gives you a crazy amount of defense, normal damage taken reduction, and a small amount of march speed. The third skill, however, is a chance to drain the enemy, right? Now this skill, I do like this skill a lot because it doubles as a debuff and debuff simultaneously, right? Which is why this is really good, but it's only a chance and it's only for 2 seconds, right? Now it's whenever you launch or are hit by a basic attack, so it is going to happen more often than you think, right? Like you think 30% chance, that's 1 in 3 turns, but really it might be a little bit more than that because it's when you're taking hits as well. But either way, we're still looking at a skill that has a chance to do something, but a bigger chance to do nothing. If there's a 30% chance of it triggering, that means there's a 70% chance that you're actually not going to do anything here, right? So like realistically speaking, if we're going to remove a skill from Ragnar, and we're not even removing it, we're just dropping it down, right? We drop the trigger chance down to 10%, which sucks, right? But you're still getting a trigger chance, and it's still yeah, it's still something, right? But the fourth skill being at 5 is really important because this reduces the skill damage that you take from 10 all the way up to 25%. And who's the number one threat on the field right now? That's right, it's Emperor Chin. Okay, and he's dealing skill damage. You want to reduce that skill damage at all costs. All right, and also when your rage reaches 70%, you gain a 15% bonus to skill damage, which just boosts the active skill of your secondary commander. Most likely that's going to be CPO Prime if you're using a Ragnar Lodbrok. So yeah, really a 5515 Ragnar Prime I think is a really solid stopping point, especially for a skill damage infantry commander, right? Like right now we expect the future of infantry to be smite damage, right? And so if you're going to be investing in a skill damage infantry commander in 2025, it's like, how much longer are you really going to even use Ragnar Prime at this point? You know what I mean? So like a value build for Ragnar Prime is kind of like the best of both worlds. You get a really strong commander that you can use right now, but it's 50% of the cost, right? 380 sculptures is almost, it's about half the cost of the full investment of 690, but he still gets most of the value here. So I really like Ragnar Prime at 5515 if you can get the build like that with some skill resets, or if you're lucky on the first try. And the final commander that we're going to talk about here in the 5515 configuration is of course Joan of Arc Prime, ladies and gentlemen, everybody's favorite female cavalry commander. She is very well known for being very strong at 5515, so much so that I for years now have been telling players, do not expertise Joan of Arc Prime because you don't need the expertise on her. You just genuinely do not. Her active skill, very strong, 2000 damage factor, 3 targets, a little bit of a buff here, which is nice. Second skill gives her a small amount of stats, decent march speed, a tiny amount of normal damage bonus. The third skill though is not very good at all. It says when you're attacking another troop, you gain 5% more damage for your cav units, which is, I believe this is just normal damage. I actually don't think this boosts. It's been a long time since I thought about this, but I'm pretty sure this is just your attack and counterattack. I do not think that this boosts your active skill damage. And it says whenever you use an active skill, you have a 30% bonus to normal damage for 1 second with a 5-second cooldown. That's crazy. You can't even double stack this back to back with her back to back active skills. Meanwhile, the fourth skill, you get 10% cav health and a 100% chance of double casting your active skill every other skill cycle, right? That long cooldown does suck, but basically it's every other skill cycle you get a guaranteed double cast of the active skill. Her active skill is the best part about her. The 10% extra health here is just a nice bonus, right? Which we really like. So all in all, the third skill barely does anything. A 1 second buff and a 5% bonus to attack and counterattack. Like that's not very good at all, right? The expertise gives you 5% counterattack damage. We don't care about that. 5% more damage to troops with more than 30%. Okay, that's pretty good because most players are above 30%, but is it worth like all those 310 sculptures? Absolutely not. 5515 Joan of Arc Prime is fantastic investment material right there. She is such a great value commander. If you can get that configuration, highly recommend that you try it if you are still investing in her at this point. Moving on to the 5551 commanders. This is probably why you clicked on the video, because these commanders, not only are they budget friendly, but they are guaranteed to be obtained in their optimal configuration. And let's start this list off with the tried and true, once again a cav commander, William. Okay, William has shocked me with how long he has stayed into the meta, right? If you had asked me a year ago if we would still be even talking about William, I would say absolutely not. He's too old, right? His damage factor is too low. It's a weird shape, but the truth is people are still using William in 2025 and they're still getting good reports with him behind King Arthur. Now, should you invest in William right now in 2025? Probably not, unless we see his second relic upgrade come around, which I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon, like a tier 2 upgrade for him. Maybe we will, who knows? But unless we see that, then I don't see him sticking around much longer. But the truth is right now people are still using him at 5551 to great effect, because first skill at max, you get all the damage there. Second skill gives you 20% attack, 15% march speed, which is not conditional, by the way. That's the beauty about this, is Joan of Arc Prime, 10% of her march speed is only in enemy territory, or outside alliance territory I should say, whereas you get 15% at all times for William, which is nice. And outside of alliance territory you deal 10% more damage, which is actually really, really nice. Third skill without the expertise is 20% more attack. So all in all, we have 40% attack now, and you have a 10% chance to instant proc the target with a damage factor of 800. And if they're surrounded, it's 80 times 5-second cooldown, whatever. So okay, you get more attack and an instant proc out of the third skill. When your active skill hits one target, you gain 10% defense when this is at 1, so you get 50% of the value there. And it says if you hit 2 or more targets, up to 5 nearby allied or friendly troops gain 50 rage per second and the defense bonus, right? But the key here is that 50 rage per second is the best part about this skill, and having this skill at 1, you still get 50 rage per second, right? It's not like this scales where it's, you know, 10 rage per second at 1 point and 50 at 5 points. No, it's 50 no matter what, which makes this skill super valuable with just 1 point. There is absolutely no reason to expertise this commander. I did it because I'm insane and I wanted the expertise, the bonus stats here, and I actually had a bunch of extra sculptures laying around. When did I expertise it? Yeah, look at that. It was over a year after recruiting him I actually expertised him, but that was all the way back in 2022. I've gotten good value out of him, and on top of that, at 5551 you can still come in here and grab his museum relic, which is going to have him take 3% less counterattack damage, and you're going to deal 100 extra active skill damage, which is nice. That bumps it up to 1600. It's something small, right? So who knows? I mean, maybe one day if he gets a second tier upgrade here and they bump this up to, you know, 6% and bump this up to 300, then we're talking like he's maybe a little bit more relevant. But even still, I think at this point, should you invest in William? Probably not, but it's still worth noting that the value is definitely still there at 5551. Moving on, we have Hermann Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Hermann Prime is fantastic at 5551, and I've been saying this more or less since he came out, because the active skill, 2000 damage factor to the 3 targets, and you get that poison stack debuff. You get all the stats on the second skill, attack, defense, and march speed, which you really need for archers. The third skill gives you a 20% bonus to AoE skill damage, which is very good. That's what archers are all about. And you have a chance to have the target lose their 20% defense for 2 seconds, more damage to cavalry, more damage taken from infantry. But the fourth skill being at 1 isn't that big of a deal, because it says you take less damage from poison targets. Okay, so it goes from 0.2% all the way up to 1%. So that is a 5x in the value there, which is something, right? But the best part about this skill is that when you launch a basic attack, you have a 10% chance to do a 3 target AoE, and each troop hit by that are going to take 2 stacks of poison for 10 seconds, right? Now this skill being at 1, it's a tiny damage factor. It's 50 damage factor, but you don't really care about the damage factor. What you care about is spreading as many poison stacks as possible. That's what Hermann's all about, right? So yes, having him expertise, this is going to deal more damage, but really what you care about here is the poison stack spread. So having him at 5551 is totally fine. The expertise here says when you inflict 25 stacks of poison, you cast your active skill again. This doesn't trigger as often as you would think, plus it has a long cooldown. So yes, you're missing out on this, which is a little bit of a bummer, but really 5551 is a great budget build for Hermann Prime. I don't think that you need to take him past there, especially if you can't afford to do it right away, but you do want to use him in your upcoming KVK, for example. Leaving at 5551 is probably a safe bet for now. Next up is yet another Prime commander, and that is, of course, CPO Prime, baby. He is the true legend. Okay, CPO Prime is, I mean, what do I say? He's the GOAT. He's been around forever. Pretty sure he was the first Prime commander in Rise of Kingdoms. Got him in April of 2022. Joan Prime came around in September of 2022. Yeah, so CPO Prime, first ever Prime commander. We're still talking about him over 3 years later, and at 5551 he is a great value build. Why? Well, one of the best parts about him, 3 target AoE, huge health reduction, second skill, bunch of march speed, a bunch of attack, and even more march speed outside of territory, which is really what you want for your infantry. Third skill, 20% health when you're attacking on the map, which is fantastic, and you have a 10% chance to deal 500 damage each second over time for 3 seconds, which is really, really great. So you get a bunch of stats, a bunch of march speed, and an instant proc, and a 3 target AoE with health debuff. The fourth skill, you have a 50% chance to reduce the enemy's skill damage by 10% when this is at 1, and grant a small shield to nearby friendly troops for 3 seconds. So when this is only at 1, you still get half the value out of the shield, right? It's 250 as opposed to 500. And look, skill damage is very prominent in the open field right now with Emperor Qin and with archers being how they are right now. But at the end of the day, you're still taking a lot of smite damage. You're still taking a lot of combo damage from those King Arthurs, right? And so if you take smite or combo damage, this last skill doesn't do anything. It literally does nothing. So by leaving this at 1, it's like, you know, yeah, you're gonna reduce the effectiveness of this skill when you're fighting archers, but at the end of the day, this skill was way more valuable when he first came out, and skill damage was the name of the game. That was all that there really was. But these days there's a lot less skill damage than there was before, because of the new damage types. And so the fourth skill on CPO Prime is not as useful as it once was. And then finally, the expertise, yeah, you deal more skill damage, that is nice to have, and you gain rage 30% faster if its current target is silenced. But this is not that relevant anymore, because back in the day we would run Guan CPO and that was the play, right? But now you're not running him with Guan anymore anyway. You're running with Ragnar Prime. And so if you're not the one silencing the target, and pretty much nobody's using Guan in the open field anymore, then the target's almost never going to be silenced, right? So you're not really getting, you know, half the expertise is basically useless these days. So it's never been a better time to have a 5551 CPO, but I do just want to warn you guys that just like with Ragnar Prime, it is a little bit risky to be investing in a skill damage infantry commander at this point in 2025. Okay, he's fantastic right now, but we don't know what the future is going to be for skill damage of other troop types besides archers. Okay, I'm not saying skill damage is dead for infantry. We absolutely could get more skill damage infantry. I mean, we thought it was dead and then they gave us Ragnar Prime, so like that is evidence in itself that they can just drop skill damage infantry whenever they want, right? And honestly, this is a little bit of a bonus. Okay, so if you made it this far into the video, drop a thumbs up, it really helps out. But also, that's how they're going to solve the power creep problem, right? They're going to have a lot of power creep in the direction of specific damage types, and then they're going to have a little bit, and then maybe the next release is just going to be a little bit of power creep in the skill damage direction, and they'll just do that back and forth for each troop type. And then you're kind of you're splitting the power creep into two directions. And so yeah, there's still, it's almost like going up steps, right? It's a little bit here and then a little bit here, and so each type of damage does get power creep every single release, but it's a small bump here and then a small bump here. I think that's what's going to be the play for the future of the meta, by the way. That's I mean, if I were the devs, that's what I would do, because it just spreads out the power creep, so it doesn't feel as bad all at once, right? And then we still have use for our skill damage stuff for all the other troop types. Anyway, with all that being said, let's talk about the #1 best commander in the game to have at 5551, and that is none other than King Arthur, baby. King Arthur's active skill deals so much damage, bro, so much damage. The second skill gives him 50% of stats and 20% march speed for a cav commander. He's already fast as heck. He doesn't need that march speed, but he's got it anyway. All right, tons of stats here. Third skill is literally a 30% bonus when you're fighting a field troop to either combo damage or skill damage, whether depending on if he's primary or secondary, right? I mean, that's fantastic, right? The fourth skill says whenever you launch a combo attack or deal direct damage, you have a 30% chance to reduce the target's rage by 50 if it's at 1 every second for 2 seconds, and when you use an active skill you gain march speed. Okay, so when we think about the value of this fourth skill compared to the others, it's not nearly as good, right? Because leaving this at 1, you still get half the value out of the rage reduction. Pretty good stuff there, right? And also, it's only a chance to happen. It's not even guaranteed that you're even going to get anything out of this skill. The other 3 skills, it's guaranteed you get this stuff all the time. So why would you get rid of those when you could just leave them at 5551 and have a really strong AoE combo or skill damage cavalry commander and a bonus to your own march speed? You don't need that as cavalry. I'm sorry, you don't even need that part of the skill. Now the expertise is quite good and you are missing out on this, and so I still think, you know, this isn't a Joan Prime scenario, right? Like Joan Prime's expertise isn't even that good, so it's like whatever, just leave her at 5551. So it's like whatever, just leave her at 5515, right? Arthur is not the case. If you can get his expertise, it's probably worth it, right? But that being said, if you can only bring him to 5551 right now, that's a really good place to leave him. I think he's really strong there, and then eventually, you know, when we see the next cav release, depending on what it is, then you can decide, okay, I'm gonna go all the way with King Arthur and max him out, because the expertise is really quite good here. Anyway guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, drop a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton. It helps get this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it and they can get value on their legendary commander investments. Comment down below your favorite commander investments at 5551 or otherwise, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. With that being said guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.